they have a sense or an urge to feel happy by depending on others, feeling worthy or feeling good enough by getting validation or confirmation from other members, colleagues, friends, family members, or whatnot. And that's something that people need to start, think about and realize that you're worthy and good enough regardlessly. Everyone in here actually is good enough, and no one can say otherwise. I mean, we can't really depend on people for being happy or for feeling worthy. They're just opinions, and we can't have those opinions be justifiable reasons for us to feel that sense of worth. And if we do so, if we actually do depend on people to feel this way, those people are not going to be around for so long. So it's better to start off by having that sense within you. And on the other hand, you don't actually have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to prove that you're worthy. You don't have to prove that you're actually good enough. And the other thing that is important is self-care, which I talk a lot with a lot of my clients actually. Self-care, I just want to introduce, just to give you a definition of what self-care is. Sometimes they say self-love. It's when you fulfill your psychological needs prior to others. And I like to use metaphors in some cases. So with this one, I would say, maybe it's been a long time since anyone has been on a plane, but if you can remember, when those oxygen masks come down, they always say, put the oxygen mask on yourself before putting on or helping maybe a child with putting that mask on. So it's the same concept. And some people, especially in this culture, they might say, but no, that's selfish. And it's because we come from a collective culture. A collective culture is one that, where people look after one another, when the young look up to their elderly and, do as they say. And we kind of live in harmony. Now, that's not a bad thing. There's some pros to that. But sometimes people see it as being selfish. However, it's not. Why isn't it not selfish? Well, I'd like you to imagine, let's say we have 5 cups on the bottom, and then we've got 4 on the top, 3, 2, and 1 at the very top. Okay, and you're that one cup at the very top. Now, if I pour water into your cup and I don't stop, what's going to happen? You're going to overflow, and that water is going to go down and then start to fill the rest of the cups. And that's the catch here. If I'm going to be doing things for myself, fulfilling my psychological needs prior to others, I'll be able to contribute more to other people. I'll be able to help people even more. And that's a problem with people who tend to be, if you want to call them, people pleasers. They always want to accommodate to other people's needs, and they're always out there to get that sense of self-worth or validation that they're valuable, and that makes them happy. But if you keep doing that, where do you stand in life? How about you? You see, so it's very important to understand the concept of self-care. But what does self-care include? Well, there are 3 components that I actually focus on. One is activities. As human beings, when we have a pleasure in doing something that we enjoy, we automatically become happy. We gain a sense of confidence and also a sense of self-accomplishment because we've accomplished the task. So activities can be a lot of things. They can be as simple as reading a book, walking, along the beach, doing some exercise, watching a movie. It's basically treating yourself as well. So, from time to time, if you like to, treat yourself and after, a hard week of work, go ahead and treat yourself with something that you enjoy. Another part is also how you talk to yourself, and maybe you might, it might sound a little crazy, but it's actually very, very effective. A lot of people I mean, I will say, when you talk to yourself, I asked them this question: do you talk to yourself as if you're talking to your friend? A lot of people say no, because they talk to themselves in, if you want to say, a rigid manner, or an aggressive manner. Most of it is blame. Most of it is like, oh, you can't do this, you're not good enough, or you should have. I'd like to say we should eliminate the words should from our day-to-day conversations with ourselves, because when you say should, okay, say, I mean, rather than saying should, say I can, or because once you say should, you're going to start to downfall yourself, and that's not going to be good for you emotionally. Okay. Now, moving on to another component is setting healthy boundaries. They say you can't really control people, and I disagree with that to a certain extent. You can actually, and in regards to how they talk to you, how they behave towards you, and that's basically how we set healthy boundaries. And they're called healthy boundaries because we don't want to have a clash or a conflict. Let's say if I'm, let's say, working with someone, and he's a colleague of mine, and let's say I have a lot of work to do, but he at times would ask me to do things for him or for her. I usually would say yes, but internally I don't really want to, and that's a problem that I'm going to later on face, because I'm going to be like, why didn't I say no? All right. If you have a 1% doubt in doing something, I urge you to not do it. Okay. And we don't have to, just say no to the person. Okay. There's actually a way we can set those healthy boundaries. And I would always start off by saying a positive note at the beginning. And it's because we want people to listen. If I'm gonna, let's say, if someone was rude to me, okay, and that person comes to me and starts saying, "Oh, you were so rude the other day. You better watch yourself," for instance. Well, I'm going to be on self-defense mode automatically, because I'm going to see that person attacking me. So if you want to say we're going to just keep barking at each other, and there's not going to be any healthy boundary put. So I'll start in a positive note. So going back to that example of a friend or a colleague of mine, requesting for some help, I would start off by saying, I'd really love to help you today, but I've got a full plate, so and it would be okay to apologize. I'm sorry, I just can't, help you with that today. I mean, when I do it in that way, when I approach a person in that way, okay, whatever they fabricate is not your responsibility. And if they're disappointed with that barrier that you've placed, that's not your problem. However, if I answer back in a rude manner, then it is my responsibility, whatever they fabricate. And when I say fabricate, I mean they might say that they might have thoughts about me that I'm rude. They might have feelings that I'm not, cooperative. Okay. But when you actually approach someone in a positive manner, not only they're going to, listen to you, but there's a higher chance of them accepting and respecting your boundary. So I would say start off on a positive note, place your boundary, and end off in a positive note as well. Okay. That's basically the gist of setting healthy boundaries. And learning to say no also runs in parallel with the guidelines of setting boundaries. Okay. Where we always have to be calm. Number one is always stay calm. Okay. And I'll get to why we should always stay calm, and it has to do with our emotions. And number two, okay, is get straight to the point. Okay, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to give reasons, because once you do, you're going to leave cracks. So, for instance, that person who's asking me for help, if I tell them, what, I'd really love to, but what, if I have time, I'll go ahead and take those duties off your chest, for instance. I'm leaving cracks there, because I'm basically telling that person that I'm going to do that work. And I'm going to go through a lot of stress trying to finish my work first, so I can find time to finish the work of my colleague. So don't leave cracks, be straight to the point, be calm, you got to be respectful, of course. Start off with a positive note, put that boundary, end off with a positive note. Then you can liberate yourself from feeling responsible about what that person thinks or feels about you, whether that person is disappointed. Okay. So that's very important. I was talking about emotions. Emotions can be self-destructive, and that's something that we should all be aware of. Now, I'm not saying that we should suppress our emotions, but we should control them. The reason why is because, I mean, psychologically, whenever we become emotional, our intellect goes down, and vice versa. If our intellect goes up, our emotions go down. They can never go up together or go down together at the same time. So let's say I'm emotional and I'm really angry, I'm frustrated, I'm stressed out, okay? Those emotions will lead to something that is not positive. And what we call them are these automatic negative thoughts. These automatic negative thoughts are intrusive. We don't welcome them. And on average, we get 84,000 thoughts a day. However, I mean, I can't even remember 2 or 3 of them. It's because we're distracted, okay? And what we got to do is we got to be aware of these thoughts. So if we're emotional and we're angry, okay, we're going to have these negative thoughts and we're going to give into them. And based on that, we're going to start feeling, either frustrated or angry. And then eventually we're going to act on our feelings. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, actually 95% or more of the time, these negative thoughts are invalid, okay? So this is where CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, this is where this comes in terms of being aware of your thoughts. And we call this being mindful, where you're aware of what you're feeling, you're aware of your thoughts, and if they're negative, okay, we should challenge them. Well, first we should stop them. I mean, just say stop to yourself, okay? And a lot of people, I mean, I tell a lot of people, imagine a stop sign and, the red stop sign in white saying stop. That can help. And then ask yourself, is this thought helpful or is it harmful to me? Do I have evidence? And this is where the intellect aspect comes in. Do I have evidence that what I'm thinking right now is true and accurate? Okay, so this is where we should become more, if you want to say, intellectual rather than emotional, because emotions can be misleading. And once we become emotional, it's just like a domino effect. We start getting thoughts that are negative, and then we start to overthink, and then that will affect how we feel and hence affect the way we act and behave. So being aware of our thoughts is very important, challenging them. So, I mean, stick to the facts rather than opinions, okay? You could actually just ask, what advice would I give a friend who is having the same thoughts? Ask yourself that question. And a lot of people, would reflect and be like, okay, you know what? No, what I'm thinking right here is not really true. It's just based on maybe opinions or emotions that are at a very high peak. So we need to control our emotions because they can be dangerous, okay? So being aware of our negative thoughts, which are automatic, is really something that I stress on with a lot of people that I work with. And of course, self-care. I mean, that would really, really help in terms of being happy, and that would make you even more productive in what you do. They always say, you have to have a work-life balance. Okay. I actually like using it, but in the opposite way, where it's a life-work balance. Okay. Where, there's always these things that you have to do and these things that you want to do. Okay. And I always tell my clients, it's either they're balanced, or maybe your wants are just a little bit higher than your dues, or the things that you need to do. And that in itself will bring more happiness into your work careers. I mean, it would make you more productive. It would make you more innovative. It would help you interact with other people in a more, if you want to say, a smooth way. where you can collaborate with people and actually reach your goals. Now, another thing is that a lot of people go through is regret. I want to say it does not make sense to me that anyone regrets anything that they've done in their past. Okay, and this is why. Let's say maybe this has happened to, maybe you've experienced the same thing. Let's say that I have a conflict with someone and we clash. And maybe after a couple hours, I would say to myself, okay, why didn't you say this? Why didn't you do that? Well, that's not good. I'm blaming myself, and I'm feeling regretful because of not doing certain things or saying certain things at that moment of time. Now, that's just an example of me of having a conflict with someone else. When I say regret, I mean everything that you've done in your life, you should not regret. And here's the reason why. And it sounds very logical to me. I mean, if this took place 5 years ago, okay, and if I compare what I know today in terms of what I used to know and compare that to what I knew back then, this is how much I know today. But at that moment of time, this is how much I knew. So why would I want to blame myself and feel that regret? Now, this is impossible, but if we would go back in time, knowing what I know today, yeah, I'd probably change things, do things the way that, I should have done, but we can't do that. The past is the past. And as I say, I mean, if you think about the past, sometimes, or most times we become sad. And if we think about the future, we become worried and we feel anxious. Now, if you're stuck in the past and you're stuck in the future, okay, where are you then? You're now living in this moment of time. So living today, being here today, is where you have control. A lot of people are worried about what's going to happen next. They're like, and that's fear. Now, to me, fear, I mean, if you take each letter of the word fear, I can say that fear for F would be false, E would be expectations, A would be appearing, and then R to be real. So again, there are false expectations appearing to be real. That's what fear is. Fear has no substance, okay? So if I'm fearing that something's gonna happen in the future that actually doesn't exist right now, okay? I'm struggling with something then, which simply means that I'm struggling with something that doesn't exist right now. So why would I spend the time overthinking, feeling worried about something that doesn't exist? So we don't have control, with the future. We can't control the future, okay? We cannot go back in time. But what we can do and where we have control is today. And by starting today, we can make changes. A lot of people feel stressed because there are things that they can change and they have control over, but they just don't do it. And that's why they become stressed. Sometimes people actually become stressed and they worry, or they have, they get frustrated because they're after something that they cannot control. They think that they can control something and they can change something, but it's not going to work because it's something that we cannot control. So it's very important to know the difference between the things that we can change and have control over in comparison to things that we cannot change, okay? And once we do that, we can take control of things, take charge, make improvements, and live, more happier lives, more positive lives, rather than sticking to the things that we can't control because we're going to always fail to try to change things that we cannot change, okay? Now, going back to fear, and this has to do with success as well, okay? Is a lot of people tend to be in their comfort zone. And now being in your comfort zone is not always a good thing, okay? Sometimes, it depends on the situation, but when it comes to your career, when it comes to you being successful, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You got to get out of your comfort zone. You will fail. There's no one, I mean, if I would name some successful people, okay, the one thing that they have in common, okay, like let's say Bill Gates or any celebrity out there, they have actually failed in their lives. But there's a difference between failing forward and failing backwards, okay? And that has to do with our comfort zone. So if I fail backwards, I'm going to go back to my comfort zone and I'm going to stay there. And I'm not going to have any improvements in my life or in my career. But if I step out of my comfort zone, and I'm not saying you got to step out totally 100%. Now, just imagine there's a circle around you. Take one foot out of your comfort zone, then put it back in. And once you're comfortable with putting one foot out, then you can put both of your feet out. And then you're going to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You're going to fail, but if you fail forward, that means if you fall 7 times, you get up 8. So you keep going. And that means that failure to me is an opportunity. Okay. A lot of people say, failure is a bad thing. If you fail, that's it. It's the end of the world. Okay. It's not. It's actually a sign that you're getting closer to where you want to be. Okay. So I believe in failure, and I think failure is a good thing, not a bad thing. And it all has to do with how you see things. Okay. And I'll get to that in just a minute. Now, another thing that I also emphasize on is never comparing yourself to other people. Once you compare yourself to other people, okay, you're actually setting up a trap for your own self. And that's that trap where you feel that you're not good enough or you did something wrong. So everyone grows in a different way, okay? Now, I might have skills that someone else doesn't. Another person might have some skills that I don't. Now, that doesn't mean that that person's better than I am. It doesn't mean that I'm better than him or her. Now, everyone grows in their own unique way. And that's what's beautiful about it, okay? So never compare yourself to anyone, okay? Just focus on yourself, focus on your weaknesses and try to improve. Focus on the things that you can control, okay? Take advantage of those things and improve yourself. And that will really help, okay? Now, I was talking about as well our perspective, okay? I'd like you to imagine the coffee machine that we brew coffee in for, like, let's say American coffee, okay? I want you to imagine that the coffee is actually just information. So everything that you see around you is just information, okay? Now we have the filter that we use as well. And that filter filters that information. We've got filters in our minds, but they're just way more complex, and they're called mental fibers. Now, these mental fibers are composed of your moral compass, your experiences, things that you've been preconditioned to as a child. And that basically dictates how you process the data. So that filter basically processes that coffee, which is information, into something that we can drink. Our mental fibers that act like filters take whatever we see, okay? And depending on our mental fibers, because we have different experiences, we have different, we're all different in many ways, we may process that information in a positive way, or we might process it in a negative way. So a simple example would be if I was to drive down, let's say I'm heading to work and someone overtakes me, okay? Now, depending on my mental fibers, I could either be like, oh, this person, has let's say, he's really rude, and you might get, angry. Then those thoughts start to come in, and then which might make you feel angry, and then lead up to maybe having a clash with that person on the road, okay? Where another person with a different set of mental fibers would be like, maybe he has an emergency. We're not giving the benefit of doubt here, but we're actually trying to be more realistic, okay? We're challenging our thoughts. And whenever you start to challenge your thoughts, okay, your mental fibers, if you want to say, can be tweaked. And that's when you start to see things differently. And I would recommend, if people are going through, hard times, especially now during the pandemic, if they're going through stress, okay, I always advise on having a journal. Now, psychologically proven, when we tend to write things, and it has to be by hand, we can't do it on a phone or on a laptop. When we do that, our mind basically recalibrates. It starts to hold on to more of the positive thoughts than the negative thoughts. The reason why is because we're dumping these things. So, but there are rules to how we have to write. Now, if I want to write in my journal, okay, I'm going to have to feel, not think. Okay, because we want to get rid of those emotions. We want to start to control them. So we dump our negative experiences by writing. Okay, and number two is never reread what you just wrote. Okay, because there's a tendency of criticizing yourself, and that's something that we don't want to do. Okay, and just, once you write those things down, and they don't have to be very detailed. I mean, you don't have to write, at this time, this and this happened. No, just write what you're feeling. Anything that is bothering you at this time, or something that is still bothering you that happened in the past, write it down, dump it, close that book, put it on the side. Now, I recommend that people do this maybe a few hours before they go to sleep. Why? For two reasons. Number one, if let's say I set a time at 8 o'clock where I'd sit down, where I have my own privacy, and I can start writing, I'm going to know that every day at 8 o'clock, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to, write what's bothering me. The next day when I wake up, and let's say something pops up, something bothers me at work, for instance, you know what I can do? I can reassure myself. I can say, you know what? I'm not going to deal with you right now. I'm going to deal with you when I sit down at 8 o'clock. So what you're doing right here is you're pushing that to the side so you have a smoother day. Now, that's an error of thinking that a lot of people, have, that if they experience one negative thing, their whole day just goes, into the worst scenario. And it's an error of thinking. And basically, it's an example would be, let's say I walk into a park and the weather is beautiful and it's nice and sunny. There's flowers and it's just a beautiful day. But as I walk into this park, I see a dead bird on the floor. And because of that, now my whole day just messes up. I start having, the rest of the day just goes, down rock bottom. That's an error of thinking, okay? And that's why I recommend people to write before, or to set a time and write, so the next day, if anything comes up, they can push that aside, reassuring themselves that they will write about it at that time. The second reason is, when you dump all these negative thoughts, let's say, or things or things that bother you, you will be basically going to bed without these negative thoughts, okay? Because you've already dumped them. And it would be easier for a person to go to sleep if they're having a hard time sleeping, okay? So all in all, we really need to basically be aware of what we're doing in our lives. We need to set a routine. And I always, tell my clients, when you wake up in the morning, before you go to work, do something that, you enjoy, whether it's a walk, a jog, whether it's yoga, whatever it is, do something that you enjoy. That will make you more energetic. That will make you more positive. It's going to drive you right through to what you need to do. And time management is key, where a lot of people have a tough time because they have multiple things that they have to do during the day. And as when I work in school, it's like I got to deal with parents, I got to deal with students, I got to deal with teachers, and there's a lot of things happening. But what I do is I set a time for every objective, and that's managing my time. Doing so, just writing a list of things that you have to complete and check them off. Once you check them off, you feel accomplished, you feel more motivated to finish the second task. That really helps as well. So going back to being aware, we need to be aware of our thoughts. We need to do things that we like to do, okay? We want to do, okay? Even after a whole week of hard work, treat yourself, do something that you enjoy, okay? And if there's something if there's something that you don't want to do, don't do it. Like if there's something that bothers you, okay? Let's say I'm at home, I'm working, I'm busy, and suddenly a friend of mine appears. He knocks on my door. He didn't call me. We didn't plan that we would meet. Now I'd open the door, and then there's a part of me who says, just let him in for a few minutes. But at the same time, nah, I'm not feeling that. No, I'm busy. So, that's where I actually set a boundary. I'd say, oh, well, it's really nice to see you. And I'd love to spend time with you, but I'm just really busy right now. So how about we, catch up. Maybe I can call you in a few hours, and then we can set a day and time so we can catch up. Now that is, I mean, I wasn't disrespectful to the person, okay? So I shouldn't feel responsible for whatever he thinks of me or feels about me. And at the same time, maybe that person is going to self-reflect and say, I should have maybe called them, So you got to be aware of these things, okay? And never ever depend on other people. I mean, yes, in a place of work, it's really nice to be appreciated and recognized for doing things, for achieving goals. That's great, okay? But don't depend on that to be happy. Don't, okay? Just take that as a compliment and just keep going. It will motivate you, okay? But don't base your happiness where you work on other people. You need to find your happiness in what you do, or you put your happiness in what you do, okay? And if you would imagine just like how many years do we live? Let's say 80 years in average, okay? A big chunk of that, we're actually working, okay? And there have been studies done by Harvard where they would see the people who actually work, and if they're not happy in what they're doing, they don't find happiness at work, or they don't bring happiness into their work, which everyone can, by the way, okay? Then what happens is that they actually have a shorter lifespan, okay? So when you're happy at work, or you bring happiness to work, you actually live longer. And not only that, but your productivity goes up. Your intelligence at work goes up. Your innovation goes up. Everything goes up by itself. So it's just that we need to find our happiness, or bring our happiness to work, okay? How do we bring our happiness to work? Well, self-care, okay? If I just work all day, all the time, all week, and not do anything for myself, I'm gonna burn out. And that's something we don't want to go through, because when we burn out, we tend to be less productive, less efficient. So we got to have a balance here. And it's very, very important that you realize that I need some time for myself as well. I need to fulfill my own psychological needs. So when I head to work, I'm ready to go, okay? And that will really help everyone in every way, not only at work, but even at home, even with friends. So that is very important. So again, never compare yourself. Don't ever feel that you regret anything in your life, okay? Be aware of your automatic negative thoughts, challenge them, because 95% or more of the time, they are invalid, okay? And just keep in mind, when we become emotional, our intellect goes down, and vice versa. And take care of yourself, okay? When you do, you'll be able to take care of a lot of things around you in a more effective way. Lastly, I just want to say, failure is not something to be scared of. Failure is something that you should look at as an opportunity, okay? Get out of your comfort zone. And I'm not saying you should go from 0 to 100, okay? You can't do that. It's not good. It's going to backfire. Do it in stages, in a hierarchy, okay? And you will get there, okay? And always set those healthy boundaries, okay? They're called healthy because we want to avoid any conflicts, okay? And I just want to end with, again, I just want to thank everyone for listening here, and I'd like to take any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Dr. Andy. So if anybody has any questions, please type them on the chat, or you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask a few things. All right, Frank.
Dr. Andy, I have something. How can people get in touch with you if they would like to learn more about what you're talking
Oh, sure. You can follow me on Instagram, actually. It's underscore Dr. Andy Baldwin underscore. And you can just direct message me. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them and provide guidance as well.
Excellent.
Hello. Hi.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Andy. Dr.
Hi.
Andy, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for the great session. What you're talking about is very important in terms of awareness and being conscious, which we really need in this in our lives. The more conscious people, the less problems we create in our lives. And I really appreciate this session. And it's great. It's because what you're pointing to is that people, what they need to do is to stop thinking, because the thinking, people think that their minds, that the more they think, that they are more intelligent.
Better. Right.
Yeah, and it's exactly the opposite. And when you said, like, people, oh, I wish I said that, or I did not take the right action, most likely they were present at that moment. Because when you are present and during that moment, the right thing would come up from you, from what's needed will come out naturally. So it's very important. And I read a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's exactly, I mean, to me, it was very useful and to the point, because people do use different filters, as you said, and what's scarier, that it's not your own filters. Sometimes it's the other. I might connect to you through someone else's filter, which is their projection on you.
Right.
So getting rid of the egoic mind is an amazing thing. So it works. It's really good for the work environment and for the relationships, of course.
Right.
I mean, I just wanted to thank you. I don't have a specific question, but I really would like to see everybody who, like, I wish they take it as a subject in school, or like in every corporate or every in organizations, because they keep telling, check your ego at the door. What does that mean? That's exactly just explained today. Imagine yourself driving in your car. How many of you that's driving from A to B, and you don't know how you got there because your mind is just thinking. You wouldn't notice that tree. You wouldn't notice maybe a friend next to you on the car. And the suggestion is to start creating gaps, mind gaps. That's like, I'm not gonna. And once you start being the witness, the observer of those thoughts and being aware, you will be starting at the beginning. It will be annoying, but then you'll be laughing because I'm like, oh, my mind did it again. Look, he's taking me.
Yes.
Stuck in the psychological time, which is past and future, rather than the present moment. Would love to see more of your workshop, more of people to take to become aware. So I mean, talking about it is like reminding myself as well to do it, because it's
reinforcing.
Yeah, it's impossible to be present all the time. I mean, I wish, but it's hard. And then people say, okay, what do you mean we don't think? We need to think about objectives. We need to think about targets. But this is what happens. Let's say you have a project and then it's due after 6 months. And then people normally tend to be like, just think every day they think about closing that project. They don't enjoy the steps within. And then that's where the false expectation, if appearing real, as you said, then if the project fails, they will be devastated. They will be really down. But if they go just step by step, enjoying what they're doing every day, they will not feel that way. They will not take it as a failure. I'd like to add one more thing. That stress is I mean, the meaning of stress is when someone is physically or mentally in a phase of their life that they're not happy with. Imagine you are in a meeting that you don't like. You'll be stressed the whole time. You want to go somewhere else, pick your kid from the school or do something else, for example. So whenever you face a life situation that you don't like or you're not happy with, your choices are always like, can I leave? Do I have the privilege to leave? Then yes, I'd leave. If I don't, then can I change it? If not, then I have to accept. So acceptance is also important to be happy.
Yes.
Be joyful, the right word. So
right.
I enjoyed your session, and I just wanted to thank you, and I really hope more people become aware and conscious.
Mr. Rashid, thank you so much. I really appreciate your words and your wisdom as well. And you bring up some really good important points. When you said if you're driving in the car, you don't notice the tree, how you get from point A to point B. It's because our mind is somewhere else. And it's just that we're not living our lives in the present moment of time. And that's all about being mindful. And another thing is when you mentioned acceptance. Acceptance is something that's really, really important. And I would, usually I would suggest that, let's say that you're same example in the meeting. Okay. I would always say this is sit with it. Okay. Experience the moment at its fullest. And that doesn't mean, let's say, don't get any negative thoughts. No. Okay. Get them. Think about them. Feel those negative feelings. Fine. Thank your mind for its opinion, but sit through it. But now here's the catch, okay? Because when I like to replace also the word accepting by receiving, and that's receiving everything at that moment of time, right? And after receiving it, when we do not say anything about those thoughts or feelings, or we don't judge them, okay? We basically decentralize ourselves from all that negativity, and then we'll be able to let go. And then I just wanted to add that because you bring up this really important point about acceptance, and I'm a firm believer, and I totally support that.
Excellent, and you're right to frame it that way, or to rephrase it that way, because a lot of people don't understand the meaning of acceptance. They mean, oh, if I'm getting beaten, should I accept that? It's not that. Receiving it, okay, what it is, what it is.
Right.
It would be crazy to go against the universe. If the universe is going that way and you got this accident, you have to accept that and then act. But you're right.
Exactly. Yes, I agree. So, thank you so much. Thank you.
Hi, Doctor.
Yes, please.
Well, it was a very nice webinar, very good session. And there's a saying, it's not what you say, but how you say. So what you said and how you said, it's fine. Rather, I should say absolutely fine. And apart from what Mr. Rashid said, acceptance, I would say, along with the acceptance, we should keep on trying. And, it's better to have tried and failed than not to have tried and failed. And hope to have your session again. It was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muhammad. And yes, you do also bring an important point about what you say. I want to add to that is what you say is what you become as well. So
True.
One has to be careful about what he says even to himself or herself. So yeah, that's I totally agree. And thank you for your comment. Appreciate it.
And lastly, I mean. While explaining things or while elaborating, the way, I mean, you were so courteous. I mean, I would say courtesy to life what oil is to machinery. So thank you, Doctor. Thank you once again.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Sorry for interrupting. Doctor, I hope we will have the more webinars from you again.
Oh, yes. Looking forward to that. Actually, we can talk about different topics. I'd be more than happy to.
I will pass on my comment. Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Thank you. You too.
Anybody else have any other comments or questions?
Well, I mean, I can add a few. What I would like my advice also to helping Dr. Andy or supporting his session as well is that nobody can be perfect and 100%. There's no such word to be perfect, but to be present the whole time. But once someone gets into this path and try to be aware, even when we go right now, for example, I will speak about myself. If I go into that time, lost in time, I would snap out of it much faster than before. I mean, so it's something that's really important to have, because you would recover quickly and say, oh, wait a minute, this is not me, this is not my thought, this is because we will keep going between the consciousness and unconscious dimensions every second, maybe, I don't know. So it's that's it.
Yes, I mean, Mr. Rashid, I totally agree, and I think it's practice. The more you do it, the more you'll be able to get out of that zone. So yeah, I totally agree. That's 100% correct.
All right, I would like to just close out today with just a couple of thoughts. Number one is we work hard. All of these everybody here today, are all here for a reason. They're all business leaders. They're all in the business world, and they're all looking to improve themselves professionally. But what I find so interesting is so many in the business world that work so hard to improve themselves professionally don't realize that self-care is one of those critical factors that you have to work. So this today was just an outstanding event, Dr. Andy. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It hit on so many little things, and one of the biggest things, and Rashid, our fellow board member at AmCham Kuwait, a great leader, clearly obvious, does his work and homework on this kind of thing, and that's why and what makes great leaders, in my humble opinion. And so you can't have understanding, you can't have leadership, you can't have mentorship without understanding self-care and understanding how to help others. So I thank you very much. I love the point about happiness. Happiness is your choice. It's a conscious choice that we make, and it's not something that you just turn on and off. It's something that you have to work at, and you have to develop systems in place for you to build on that. And so I love that point. And I also, I'm an ex-military guy and for 20 years, and one of the big things I love you talking about is fear. And it doesn't matter if it's in your life, in the military, or in business, fear. Fear is something that is made up in your mind. And if you choose to react to it, then you've made the conscious choice to go in the wrong direction. So danger, different thing. Danger is a physical threat that you need to be aware of, but fear is something that hadn't even happened yet. So I love the discussion. It was outstanding, Dr. Andy. I thank you very, very much. I know that I'll be watching this whole segment again myself on the recording just to catch those things that I missed. I thank everybody for being with us today. I thank all of you that are going to be with us watching the recording later down the road. We thank AmCham Abu Dhabi for being part of us today. And we wish all of you a wonderful, wonderful day, and look forward to seeing you, Dr. Andy, in the near future, and seeing all of you again in one of our upcoming events. Thank you all so very, very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. It was a pleasure speaking to you all. Thank you.
Nice
to meet you, Doctor.
Nice to meet everyone.
Just a quick one, Doctor. You are a good speaker, and on top of it, you are a good listener.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, bye.
Yeah, have a good evening. Bye-bye. Thank you.